Hi, Dan Stein. Thanks for joining. I'm president of FAIR, and I'm joined today with Preston Hunnigan, who's FAIR's Government Relations Associate. Does a great job for us. Listen, we got some major historical events coming up, and you want to be watching this very closely. You see, the Biden administration has painted itself into a corner and created the perfect storm. Through a series of policy changes in the last year, they have dismantled interior enforcement. There's no interior immigration law enforcement at all. Put ICE on ICE, right? Immigration Customs Enforcement. They've expanded the definition of asylum. They've weakened the credible fear requirements. They now release most aliens into the country for years to wait for their hearing. And they've fought against every conceivable deterrent possible, including remain in Mexico, undermine cooperative agreements with sending countries, so they can't send people back in many cases. And increasingly, the Biden administration is entering into settlements with the ACLU to dismantle even the last remaining bond requirements for holding aliens in detention. They don't even call them aliens, by the way, anymore. They call them euphemistically non-citizens. And they've wound up relying on this Title 42 that's part of the CDC health requirements, and it's pandemic related. Now, when you basically pull apart the foundations of the entire enforcement structure and border control apparatus, and then rely upon this last remaining health-related regulation, when the CDC abolishes or says it's no longer valid because COVID is gone, which is probably not true at this point, we have an ongoing tidal wave, a chaos, a tsunami of perhaps 500,000 or more people storming the border in a short period of time. This is on top of the millions who have come across illegally and through processing and adjudications and non-adjudications, just simply releasing through humanitarian parole and asylum claimants all across the country. The Biden administration has completely lost control of the process. And it's my contention that as Americans, we have to accept the fact that the influx is the agenda, that this is the objective, to maximize the inflow of people as much as possible before the 2022 election. So here to talk a little bit more about Title 42 and the implications of these decisions. Preston, what's the latest on the timing for the abolition of Title 42, and what is the Biden administration planning to do when it's lifted?
Right. So the CDC director, Dr. Rochelle Walensky, has until March 30th to decide whether or not to extend Title 42 by another 60 days.
It's already passed.
It's already passed, and every indication coming from both the CDC, from the Biden administration itself, from their spokespeople, and from individuals inside the Department of Homeland Security, it looks like Title 42 is coming to an end. And like you mentioned, this could not come at a worse time for immigration enforcement in our country. We've seen over 100,000 apprehensions, encounters at the border every single month since President Biden took office in January of 2020. And
when you use the term apprehension, in this administration, we need to think about apprehension more like trying to imagine a football player catching a football, but it's slipping through his hands, right? Falls on the ground and considered an incomplete pass. That would be an apprehension in this administration. The alien comes in, gets processed, and released.
Which is why encounter is strangely a better term, because they merely encounter them and then send them on their way with a notice to appear.
They're processing them. They're not enforcing the law. They're simply, oh, you're coming in. Good. Who are you? Can you give us a name? All right. We'll check back with you later.
Right. And so this is happening 100,000 people every single month. And under Title 42, the officials at the border were able to turn back about half of those people every month back into Mexico, citing this public health order. With this gone, all of these people will be let into the country. There is no meaningful policy in place aside from Title 42 that can stop them. And with the lifting of Title 42, there's going to be downstream effects. We know that human smugglers, cartels that largely run the human trafficking operation at the border are prepared for this, and they're prepared to bring even more people than we've seen to this date. And the Customs and Border Protection, DHS, is already estimating that within 6 weeks of lifting Title 42, we could see 500,000 people crossing the southern border.
And their response is to tell everybody about it, but they're not going to do anything about it.
That's absolutely right. And in fact, some of the more disturbing reporting now is that they're going to be taking officials from various other agencies, such as the VA, to bring.
Why would you want to provide health care to our veterans when you can be providing it to illegal aliens storming the border?
That's exactly right. And this is going to cause suffering. It will. And we don't have enough border agents. We don't have enough immigration judges. We don't have enough asylum officers. We don't have enough ICE agents when they get into the interior of the country. We do not have
ICE agents.
We don't have the infrastructure in place to handle an inflow.
It's time to wake up and smell the coffee. They don't care. All right, it's time to stop pretending that the Biden administration, A, cares about re-election, cares about retaining control of Congress for the Democrats in 2022, November of this year. They have clearly decided to try to maximize the number coming in and then try to find ways to naturalize as many as possible, even illegally. Mayorkas doesn't believe in respecting the law. Why would you expect him to respect the law in naturalizing people who are only eligible? He's allowing people to come in to making clearly phony asylum claims by the hundreds of thousands. This is catastrophic. This is the worst possible nightmare for the United States, wondering what would happen if an unprincipled, corrupt executive commander-in-chief got control and decided to use immigration to re-engineer the electorate. This is corruption from top to bottom. And now they're telling us it's happening, and they have no response except to say, we're going to take away privileges from the American people, take away the benefits they paid for, rechannel personnel, create a major national security crisis, bring in people without proper vetting, proper background checks, not develop cooperative agreements to make people wait outside, not deter any aspect of the illegal flow. Preston, what is the average American supposed to make of this?
I think the average American should be both horrified and disgusted at this. This has no benefit whatsoever except for the illegal aliens who are coming in. There is no national interest in allowing hundreds of thousands of people to illegally cross the border every single month.
So who benefits from this?
Well, besides the illegal aliens themselves, I'm not exactly sure because, as you said, this is not popular with the American people. We know that there are moderate Democrats who are terrified of this happening because they know it's going to come and bite them in the election. And so it truly boggles the mind to imagine that this benefits anyone other than people who do not believe in national sovereignty, who do not believe in the concept of national borders. That's the only class of people that this benefits in any way.
Now, we know that cartels have been manipulating the border situation from the beginning, and it's getting worse and worse, right? Setting fires, using various distraction techniques, sending over women and children while they bring in fentanyl and smuggle in people otherwise. I assume they're going to be making a lot of money during this process. And at what point do we expect to see the cartels actually operating on the northern side, our side of the border, and manipulating the whole process?
It's going to be happening very soon, and you're absolutely right. The cartels are going to profit massively from this. Something that we've seen with the current crisis is that they are using large groups of these illegal aliens to go and distract Border Patrol while they bring the drugs in unseen by Border Patrol, because Border Patrol has to address the people and get them their notices to appear and start that process. So this is going to lead to the increase of fentanyl distribution in the United States, the increase of cocaine distribution in the United States. Any drug that we're seeing come through the southern border is going to increase, and that increases the profits of the cartels.
Is it possible the Biden administration will actually deploy airplanes and just simply try to fly all these people into the interior?
Well, we've seen that already. We've seen that they've been doing it with trains, buses, cars, every tool they have at their disposal to get these people into the interior of the country, they've used. We've seen that with these midnight flights that are occurring throughout the United States.
There must be an end game here in terms of a policy objective. There are literally limitless numbers of people from around the world who would probably like to try to come to this country, other countries like it. In all other countries, Germany, certainly in Europe, Australia, all around the world, there's normally a political response that seeks to reassure the public that the Politicians in charge have some commitment to the national interest, the preservation of the nation state. What explains this Biden administration failure to pivot? There's the fact that Biden hasn't been to the border, that he has only mentioned immigration briefly at the State of the Union. Otherwise, he has not said a thing since last March. He seems to be completely asleep and not engaged at all in this problem. He did say something in Poland that suggested he knew something was going on, but this is truly without historical precedent in America, right?
That's right. And I think it comes back to there are two possibilities here. One, which you mentioned, is that the entire administration is asleep at the wheel, unable to handle the cascading effects of this.
Not plausible.
But second is that this
some
is
of the
by
smartest
design.
minds on the other side of this issue who know where all the weak links.
Well, and that's the second point, is that it's by design, and that this is a policy decision to unravel the protections that were in place before he took office and to allow this.
Well, this is worse than before they took office. Obama never did anything so ludicrous, never had any concept. This is politically devastating to the Biden administration. The polling shows that they're absolutely ready for a bloodbath politically, yet they refuse to pivot on this issue and on a variety of other issues as well. Now, I mean, some people could argue that maybe this is good for the long run of border and immigration control, because in the hands of people who are either treasonous or incompetent or incapable or malignant and malevolent in their motives, you've got to have real reform by people who care about it. And maybe it's going to shift the Overton window, among Republicans to be more engaged on the issue instead of just saying, yeah, we'll throw a few beer cans of Border Patrol money and then everything will be fine. No, they won't be fine. Okay, this is a serious internal crisis in this country. Providing benefits to all these people by the hundreds of thousands or millions who never paid any taxes, plowing into these major cities that are already overwhelmed with schools, housing, and healthcare and all these other requirements. There's no limit to what could happen here. And everybody's entitled to know, what is the agenda? Like, how can you intentionally bring about a scenario like this? Everything here is a self-inflicted political head wound.
Right.
None of it had to happen. But it's important to realize Title 42 is simply a manifestation of a broader, malevolent motive to destroy immigration enforcement in the interior, no worksite enforcement, no interior apprehensions, criminal aliens being released all over the country. I mean, this is overt sabotage of the national interest. Most people would consider this stuff impeachable conduct. How can this not be impeachable conduct?
I completely agree. And I think that House Republicans particularly need to look into that. And there are some that have already called for the impeachment of Alejandro Mayorkas, the current DHS secretary, for these very reasons. For these very reasons, saying that this is against the national interest. This is treasonous. This has no.
And this is the guy who stopped building the wall. Now they want to take the money Congress already appropriated and put it into beautification plans and beautification programs and painting Border Patrol stations that are being used for nothing more than just processing people through. So, is there any hope for the American people? What can people do?
I think the number one thing that people can do, no matter what state you live in, no matter what congressional district you live in, contact your representatives. Tell them that this is unacceptable. When they feel enough pressure, they will be able to pressure the Biden administration, even Democrats. And that may sound ludicrous, but there are moderate Democrats that are now sounding the alarm, saying, wait a minute, this is not good.
Haven't Sinema, Manchin to some extent, but also Kelly, senators from Arizona, said, look, you just can't do this. You can't just abolish Title 42 and leave Arizona vulnerable. Seems to be a rare example of Democrat split there, at least among a couple Arizona senators. That's
Mark Warner from Virginia even agreed with them and said that he echoed their sentiments, saying that we cannot lift Title 42 without having something in place, which is exactly what both Senators Sinema and Kelly alluded to in their letter.
All right, well, stay tuned. Is Joe Biden going to send his party and the country off a cliff, or are they going to take some action to forestall impending disaster? Preston Hunnigan's with me. Thank you very much. I'm Dan Stein. Thanks for watching.